So I'm really excited today to be here with Kristy of Clean Eating with Kristy. She is a coach who is helping women to find confidence in the kitchen with strategies and tools so they can spend time living their lives instead of stressing over what's for dinner. Welcome, Kristy.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'm delighted to have you on and in this space with me today. I think this is a topic that is really going to resonate with a lot of people, certainly a lot of people that chime into these types of platforms and conversations and that listen in. And I just think that you are really doing something important
Mhm.
for the women around you specifically. Women is who you specifically work with. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, I have worked with a couple men, but definitely women. That is where I'm comfortable and my
Mhm.
experience, right? So
Well, let's talk about what brought you to having such important conversations and such important influence with women in how they find that confidence in their own kitchens. Let's back it up to how you found yourself in this space and your
Mm.
own just aha moment of what needed to change for yourself.
Yeah, so it's been 20 years, which, in one sense, it's a lifetime. In another sense, it seems so close because I feel like it's always close to us, right?
Yeah.
But really, my personal health journey started 20 years ago when I was 30. I am an emotional eater and I use food. At the time I was using food for comfort and for love. I had just recently been divorced and I was a newly single mom. And so just coping with life in general was difficult. And food, like we have to eat, right? So that's one of the things that we have to do every single day. So to fall back on that was something that was just easy to do. But what I realized was as I was gaining weight and as I was not feeling great about myself and I would look in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself. I didn't like how I looked, how my clothes felt. And then my daughter, who was 5 at the time, she needed more from her mom. Like I couldn't play with her. I couldn't get down on the floor. I didn't have energy. Um, and all of those things were like, I need to do something. And for me, because exercise at that point, moving my body was not something I did, that was not at the front of my mind. So I knew that the change had to start with food. And because that is where I went, we did a lot of takeout, we did, kind of just everything. And so I started with food. And I really began this, and I will say it's a journey because it wasn't just one thing that worked for me. It was understanding, first of all, my relationship with food and how I was using food. And then also, too, understanding that, you know what, vegetables actually taste pretty good. And there's a lot of different ways that I can make them. And it doesn't just have to be the canned green beans that I grew up on, right? Or the sausage casserole that my mom used to make with like, which I can't even, but e- exploring those ways of how I could still enjoy food, and also do what I knew I needed to do, right? Which was definitely changing my food habits, eating more fruits and vegetables, and modeling for my daughter. So that's how that started. I experienced a lot of different things. I actually was a raw vegan for a while, which that's challenging in itself. It's not sustainable for me. I know that some people do it, but for me, it was a lot of work. Um, I was a vegetarian, I called myself plant-based for a while. I think the idea of plants sourcing most of my meals, I like that because I've found a way to really enjoy fruits and vegetables. So that's kind of like the crux, and then I build from around that. But I wanted to dive into this more myself. So I secretly enrolled in Institute of Integrative Nutrition. in New York City, for their health and their health coach certification. Didn't tell my husband. I remarried, didn't tell my husband at the time because I just wanted to learn more about it for myself because of the journey that I had been on. And then when I was like halfway through the program, as a 12-month program, I was like, I can, I can do this. I can help women change their lives and understand how their food that they're eating is affecting their body and give them different ways that they can really feel their best and feel amazing. And so that's kind of how the coaching side of it came about, is like I was learning more and I became so passionate about it, and food still is my passion. That's what I do. And so I just wanted to share with women and be able to help them not go through the same things that I did, essentially.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. And it is really resonating with me for sure in regards to some of the things that you shared about just where you were in your own food journey and
Mm,
kind of the walk you took to where you are now. And I love one thing that really stands out to me is I love one of your primary whys in how
mm,
you decided that you knew it was time for a change. And that was just prioritizing your daughter,
yeah.
whether it was getting on the floor and playing with her, or whether it was modeling for her how to be confident with food, and
Mhm.
not get hung up in just the trends and the comparisons and the numbers and all those types of things. Because I feel like so many people in general, but women especially, really have been groomed to believe that they should look a certain way or be a certain way,
Yes.
without ever considering what it means to be healthy amongst any of those things.
Yeah, healthy and happy too, right?
Right.
Like, I think that's a big piece. I look back at pictures now. It's funny because I was going back. I look back at pictures of, like, when I was quote unquote my thinnest. Those were some of my unhappiest times
Mhm.
because it was an outward, like, I was constantly searching for what, like, people are like, "Oh, great, Kristy, you look great. You've lost weight and this and that." So it was that constant, like, outward um gratification, I guess, right? And then it wasn't until I turned inside and really began to have confidence in my choices and what I was doing and using my voice. I talk about using your voice a lot with the women that I support, because using our voice doesn't actually have to be audibly, right? It can be, you know what, I'm going to make a salad for dinner. I've used my voice that way, right? Because I know that my body needs more vegetables, or I know that this really makes me feel good. So there are so many different ways that we can stand up for ourselves, and we can stand up for the way that we want to feel without, necessarily causing conflict, or things like that. But I think that's really important to understand too. So yeah, being happy and healthy, that's just those two words should go together.
Yeah, 100%. And I love what you shared there about how, the way that society told you you should look on the outside, um, was not at all where you found your happiness on the inside.
Yeah.
I know that that looks different for everybody. It's not
Mhm.
to say that maybe striving for what the world views as, the perfect human form isn't happy for some people, but for many people, that causes a lot of turmoil on the inside
Yeah.
to feel like you need to live up to somebody else's expectations
Yeah.
instead of your own. Because ultimately, like, if you are not healthy inside within yourself, in your mind and in your heart, you're never going to get to wherever it is you want to be on the outside.
Right. You're constantly searching, right? There's that, well, what can make me better? What's that? I always refer to it as, like, what's the next quick fix?
Hmm.
What will, like, and it's this almost like sense of urgency, right? Of like, I want to feel this. I want to feel this. But once you actually start to feel it for yourself, you can't, I think that's like, you can slow down and you can start to enjoy the things that now you are understanding. about yourself, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No,
Yeah.
it does. 100%. It makes sense. And another thing that really stood out to me about something you shared just a little bit ago is how you found your purpose within your own trauma of all of this, and
Mm.
how you were on your own journey of just finding some knowledge and wellness and healing within yourself, and then realizing that you had something amazing to share with other people.
Yeah, I think we go through these things and we think, well, my story is not important enough to tell, or like, who am I? Right. Like I'm just this person who likes to eat, right? Or, who was this thing, but really deep down inside. And that's where I started to understand, like, we're not alone. We are really all searching for this. And there are so many, our days are really consumed when we think about it with, well, what am I going to eat? How, like, what am I going to wear? Like all of these things. And so if we can kind of shorten that or make it easier with gaining confidence and understanding what it is that we need, then we can really enjoy the things that we want to enjoy, and just kind of then pursue other avenues too. It doesn't have to be so time consuming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a lot of the misconception too, is people think that making a change that benefits their physical, mental wellness is something that is out of reach based on time or energy or finances.
Yeah.
And really, if you take all of what you had referred to as what is the next thing, or like the next trend, or like the next gimmick, or the next, hot thing of the moment in regards to health and wellness. Like if you just get back to the basics of truly nourishing yourself, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Not, there is time and there is energy, an abundance of it actually. And it isn't something
Yeah.
that is consuming financially either necessarily.
No, and that's the thing that we're inundated with so many things, right? We forget that, like, an apple is an apple.
Mhm.
Or like an avocado is an avocado. Like it really is so simple. And when we can break it down like that, because I think the other piece to this is people think that healthy eating is expensive and it takes a lot of
Mhm.
time. And as a single mom, I had to learn how to stay within my budget and how to make it simple, because I did not have time for all of those things. I didn't have the money to go to Whole Foods and to like splurge, on anything. So I had to learn how to make it simple. I had to learn how to make it work for me. But what people don't realize either is the time, that is spent doing these things and eating healthy. It actually saves us time, right? In the long run, if you think about it, and
Mhm.
the energy and all of that. So there's a definite switch that happens. And until you experience it, it's it's foreign, and it's not, it's something that is up here, right? We think that
Mhm.
it's this hard thing, and we really just break it down. And that's what I love to do, is be able just to, like, let's break it down. Let's just make it really, really simple so that you
Right.
can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you hit on something important there. And it references, I can't remember who exactly said this statement or quoted it, but it says something along the lines of, you are either going to spend your time now being healthy, or you're going to spend
Mhm.
your time later being sick. And the same thing with
Yep.
money, time and money. You're going to
Yes.
spend it one way or the other. So wouldn't you prefer to spend it in wellness?
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of times too, what I find is we don't know what that wellness looks like, though, right? So we don't
Hmm.
know that we want that, because we are jumping from one thing to the other, or doing the searching things, or spending time thinking about food all the time because we're not feeding our bodies enough, right?
Mhm.
And so once we actually, again, start to experience that, we're like, hey, you know what? This is cool. I didn't know that I could feel this way. And I love that those clicks, those aha moments are like, that's everything to me. Is, I had someone write me this morning. We've been working just on adding more protein for her and not like looking at calories or anything like that. And she said, Kristy, I'm feeling less hungry during the day. And I
Mhm.
was like, yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are, because we're being consistent and because we're focusing on that. So she's able to understand, and our bodies respond when, with what we feed them.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah,
really fun. I love those aha moments because it's fun to watch. And I'm like, yes, that's it. That is exactly what we're striving for.
for sure. And when we can find consistency with the right choices, that is when the change happens, that we're looking for sure. And I think sometimes people have a really hard time being patient long enough to
Yeah.
find the results in that consistency. Um, and I'm sure that is a challenge that you encounter regularly, but people have a hard time understanding that they didn't get to an unhealthy state in a couple days, so it's going to take a lot longer
Yeah.
than that to kind of undo it and hit a reset button. um I wonder too how you approach. It's one thing to approach the food itself, right, and like help people have an understanding of better choices and better ways to go about preparing food in their own kitchens. But oftentimes, the things that sort of escalates the choices that we've made to get to a poor state of health are deeper than the actual food themselves. And they're a result of something that maybe has been manifesting within them for a long time. Maybe, a trauma or something else that they are just not past or haven't healed from yet on an emotional level. How do you help people kind of navigate that? Do you help people navigate that amongst helping them understand food better so they don't just kind of regress back to those comforts of what got them to where they were when you helped them,
Yeah.
when you first started helping them?
Yeah. So, one of, like, I guess the pillars, one of the cruxes of what I do is mindset, is talking about how the food makes you feel and why you are eating it, right? So a lot of times when we talk about tracking food, it's more for calories, right? Or
Mm,
for fat, like whatever that is. So that's surface level, right? Anybody can put that in. Anybody can track their food, put it in. But I want to know, and I want to help them understand how you are feeling when you are eating, right? And so a lot of times what we have to do is we have to discuss moods and feelings other than just good, mad, angry,
mhm.
because again, those are surface level, right? So we have to understand. So I spend time with that. They have a list that they can refer to. And so how are you feeling? And then how do you feel after you eat as well? Right. So we're like book ending that, because so many times our food choices are run by our emotions and how we're feeling in that moment. We don't think of the long term goals, because for so long, like you said, for so many years we have been functioning at this level of like, like, I'm angry now, so I'm going to eat this food so it makes me feel really good, or like, whatever, it relaxes me. And so getting them to the point of understanding that, like, oh, when my husband's home and I'm aggravated at him, that's when I open the fridge and that's when I eat, right? So and the other piece to this too is, what can I do instead? In place of this, what can I do that will move me closer to my health goals? Is it maybe going for a walk? getting some fresh air, feeling some sun on my face, going folding the laundry. So there's steps, and that's why, like you said too, it's a process. It doesn't just happen in a week. It doesn't even just happen in 4 weeks. It's a process of understanding this and knowing what to do. So I like to give them tools like that so that when our time is finished, they can still use those same tools and go back to them. And I do the same thing. When I notice myself, going going backwards and going back to what is comfortable, I have to start being aware and focusing on things myself too. So I use the exact same tools that I walk them through as well. But really, it is going past that surface into deeper and understanding those feelings and those emotions. And then, you know, we a lot of times can get to the root cause of that, but also to then what are we going to do in the future when this comes up? Because it's going to keep coming up. It will, it's like going to resurface over and over, just in different ways.
Right. Yeah. I'm so glad to hear that you are pulling back all the layers
Mm.
along the journey of helping other people because, so often, especially as it pertains to something that is essential for everybody every day, that of which is food, right?
Yeah.
Um, it is approached in a way that is very superficial. Like you said, just eat this and
Yep.
you'll get the results you want, or just stop eating that and everything will be fine. And that's not true. Because we are a lot more than what we eat, for sure. We
Mm-hmm.
are multi-layered, and the different layers of us make up the emotions that can contribute to what we reach for to satisfy um, just the comforts that we're looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, and we don't give ourselves enough credit with how our body is made. Our brain and our body, like they are made to work together. It took me way too long to realize this as well. But they're signals, right? And our brain is telling us things, our body is telling us things. And once we can understand how they work together, it really does open up a whole new almost door and like understanding of, wait a minute, if I just am silent for a minute and I can just feel this, what does
Mhm.
this mean? Right. And of course, we acknowledge the emotions, we acknowledge the feelings because they're there, but we don't have to let them control us.
I love that you said that. That is so very true. And there are very little things that we actually do have control of in our lives.
Yeah.
So much is outside of what we
Yeah.
think we can control, right? But we can absolutely learn how to control what we're putting into our bodies. 100%.
Yeah.
Um, so I love that you are helping people on their journeys with that and sort of regain their power
Yeah.
in just how they want to feel. I have conversations pretty regularly with people about just keep coming back to that question about not just food but multiple things, like even just who you spend your time with, or how you spend time on social media, or who you connect with, just in your social groups. How do you
Mhm.
want to feel? Whether
Yeah.
it's from eating or the company you keep or the things that you read, it's so important to just always keep that in mind.
It really is. And there's so many those things, right? Like we can have control over those
Hmm.
things. It's hard though, right? To break out of if we realize that the people that we're with are not necessarily encouraging or moving in the same direction that we are. That can be a really hard piece of where we have to go. And that can actually be one of the really, biggest pieces because well, they're my friends though. Like that's what it is. That's what I'm used to. But then when, you take a look at it and but is that really, where how you want to feel when you're with
Hmm.
them or what is happening when you're with them. So there's a lot. It's not like you said, it's not just about the food that you eat. There's so much more that goes into our health.
100%.
And yeah.
100%. And if we can get to the point as a society where we really start putting more value into that type of mindset, I
Mhm.
think that so much amazing change could happen, not just with our physical bodies, but especially in our mental wellness.
Yes.
It could just be astronomically transformative for the world.
Yeah.
How do we as a society develop a healthier approach, and what do you think is hindering us from it?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I think we are relying on other people's opinions too much. We're
Mm.
not trusting ourselves. And that's a hard thing to do, especially, like people pleasers and all the thing. But yeah, we don't give ourselves enough credit, and we rely on what other people say, think, do, like around us, and constantly asking them. Whereas if we were just to go inside ourselves and ask ourselves, we would be able to walk in in different ways and have different answers for us.
Yeah, absolutely. That outside influence that can just be so overwhelming instead
Mm,
of just looking within yourself. Somebody I recently shared this space with had said something really profound in that same way. And it was, if you listen too much to what other people say, um, you get stuck in their story instead of
yeah,
living your own life. And that's true for just influence from all angles. If you
yeah.
just you start not even knowing what you actually believe anymore when you start taking in too much opinions of those around you.
Yeah, because we're bombarded with it all the time, and it's even easier now, than it was 30 or 20 years ago when I first started. Because we didn't have social media like we do now, so it wasn't as easy to get all the information. So but it's hard, right? It's harder to stop and to listen to ourselves than it is just to kind of like, well, it's all the noise around me, that's easy. Um, I think that's the other thing too, is we're not used to doing things that are hard because it that requires work and consistency and practice. And that's not what we want to do. We just want another quick fix. We want a way. So it is being very aware of what is happening and what we want for ourselves, for our family, for whoever we're with, and making sure that we have v- very often just blinders on, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm just going to put my blinders on. I'm going to stay in my lane, and I'm going to do what I do because I know that this makes me feel good, and this is what I want to do.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And putting the blinders on, I think is just necessary, because if you don't, you forget what your own values are,
Mm,
and your whys. You forget your whys, and that's how
yeah.
people get derailed on their health
Yep.
journeys. I feel like that is exactly how it happens.
Yeah.
Spending too much time looking at, what other people are doing and
Hmm.
passing judgment on your own journey. Or talk to me a little bit about like the FOMO aspect of it. People get in their headspace about feeling like they're missing out on something if they're not choosing, to indulge in, I don't
Yeah.
know, going out for whatever it
Cheesecake.
is, cheesecake, or like
Yep.
pizza and beer every weekend, or,
Yeah.
just doing the things that are setting you up to kind of derail yourself. Like, and not that you can never enjoy indulgences like that, but I think a lot of people get kind of stuck in the negative thinking of that fear of missing out, or that
Yeah.
FOMO mindset. And it's easily a place where they can find themselves sort of regressing back into poor choices,
Hmm.
and getting right back to where they were and needing to start over again. That cycle of
Yeah.
always like starting over, and now I'm on the wagon and now I'm off the wagon. How do we how do we address that?
Yeah. It's like that hamster wheel, just like
Hmm.
going around. So one of the um first of all, that can be something that we're used to. So we are used to that cycle. We don't know anything else until we experience that. And that's the place where, okay, yes, in the moment, right? The pizza and beer and wings and whatever, that tastes great. That's amazing. I love it. Here, 3 days from now, 2 days from now, am I going to feel that way? So that's where we have to trust ourselves in the process. And we have to say, listen, this is how I've been feeling for this long, and I don't like this anymore. So, what can I do to change it? This is what I can do to change it. Doesn't mean that, maybe the people that you go out with or can understand that and change that. So maybe you don't have beer the next time you go out and you just have pizza, or you have a salad with the pizza, right? You can change little things along the way.
Mhm.
But it is that feeling of, okay, well, like, I don't want to miss out on this. It's going to happen again. Right? Like,
Mhm.
next Friday, guess what? Next Friday is going to happen again. So if we really feel like we missed out, then we can have it next Friday. Um, but also too, the more times we let that happen, the easier it gets to happen.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
right. So like, and I'm just thinking, because this, like, last week I was sharing before we got on, I was in Florida with my dad. I think we had dessert every single night,
Mhm.
because that's just what they do. And my little one, she was like, "Oh, this is like the best thing ever." And then our last meal, we went to the Cheesecake Factory. And I told her, I said, "We're not having cheesecake. Like, just because we're here does not mean we're going to have a piece of cheesecake." We've got Cheesecake Factory back home, but like, also to look at, like, that's where the story comes in, right? Is like, look at what just happened the last 5, 6, 7 days, and now we want to start to feel better and not so sluggish,
Yeah.
and all of those things. So that's just where that awareness comes in, because we use food to push down a lot of things, right?
Absolutely, we
And
do. Yeah.
yeah,
It is used
it's
as mhm.
yeah, it's just used because food is normal, right? We have to eat every day. And so that's something that we have to do. And so it is one of those things that becomes normal, and that we can do. So we have to learn how to use our voice, how to speak up for ourselves and our bodies. And if that means removing ourselves from the situation too, then maybe that's what we have to do. A lot of times that is really what it is, because if you stay in the situation, you are going to eventually do or get caught up into whatever it is happening, or whatever you used to. So that's where I love to use the question is, do I need to eat this food now? The answer is yes or no, right? If the answer is no, then what can I do instead? What can I
Mhm.
do instead that will move me closer to my health goals? And when you have your why, like you said, you know what you're doing. And even the littlest tiny step will move you closer when you take a look at it and look back at it.
Yeah, Christy, that makes so much sense. And I think that understanding that you do need to be intentional with your decisions if you
Hmm.
want to move that needle forward, um, is something that you do need to understand in your
Hmm.
journey. I mean, you can't expect to make a ton of bad choices and still, reach the goal that you're
Yeah.
seeking, whether that's, your wellness or in business or
Hmm.
relationships, anything, right? So knowing that you do need to continue, even if there's small steps to walk
Yep.
forward towards that intention every day in the choices that you make is so important.
Hmm.
And I've said it before in many situations, and I'll say it again here. Not everybody is meant to stay in your life forever,
Hmm.
indefinitely. Um,
Yeah.
and even not even just people, but like situations or events. Like if it is pizza and beer every Friday, maybe that's just not meant to be part of your life anymore, and that's okay.
And there's nothing to say, right? That, like, you can't look back at what you've done or the choices that you've made and say, hey, you know what? That was a really great time then.
Mm-hmm.
But now I want to do these things. And if I continue to stay here, I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to do these things.
Right.
So, and that's hard though. Like that is really, really hard, especially when you have those people like closest to you. And that can be one of the hardest things. I think a lot of the women that I work with, they're like, but I don't feel supportive from the people that are closest to me. And unfortunately, that's usually how it is because they have seen us fail or start
Mm-hmm.
so many times over and over again. They don't trust us to do what we say we're going to do. And so that's where it becomes really important then to say, hey, you know what? I love you and I'll still like continue to be in contact with you or whatever, but I need to find someone that can support me or can understand where I'm going at this point. And then those people may come along, they may see, different things. But it's, and I say now too, like I'm 50, right? So when I started 20 years ago, I never imagined that I would be where I am now. But if I would have started earlier, I wouldn't have had all of those experiences either. And I wouldn't have learned so much along the way. So we can use our experiences, we can use what we've learned along the way to help ourselves, help our family, help others if that's what we choose to do. But most importantly, our family, like those are the ones that are watching us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
um but experiences those, and when your mindset is it's an experience not a failure, that's also too where the growth comes in and where we can say, oh, okay, so that didn't work, I'm going to do this now because I know better and
Right.
because I have the tools and resources.
Right. And we're meant to evolve and learn from things
100%.
that weren't working before.
Yeah.
That's just part of growth in life. So it's
Mhm.
normal to gravitate away from things that are no longer serving you
Yeah.
and find things that are and find company that is. And I think that we just really get stuck in just our habits, our
Yep.
routines, and there's fear of moving past what is comfortable in order to find that transformation.
Yeah.
It's a scary thing to do, especially if the people around you are basically validating your bad decisions.
And making it fun and like
Mm-hmm.
a good thing, right? Yeah, that is very hard to do. But the really cool thing is too, there's another side of that where you'll have new people that are going to validate your new decisions and they're
Yeah.
going to cheer you on and they're going to support you and they're going to be like, oh, you're killing it, right? And that's
Yeah.
what we want, because that spurs us on to be able to grow and move in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% I agree
Yeah.
with that. Um, I want to back up to something that popped into my mind with something you said earlier in the conversation, and that is, just getting, I guess, back on track after doing something like going and having dessert every night while you're out of town or something. What is your approach or mindset on sort of, I guess, people that feel like they are going to indulge deeply in something and then they're going to like almost punish their way back to being on track, like, oh, I'm going to run that
Yeah.
off at the gym tomorrow, or I'm going to work out an extra hour. um, Telling yourself that, if in order for you to have something indulgent, you have to do something that is unpleasant to you.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can feel connected to that.
It's interesting that you say that. So, because I used to do that too. And so that's another cycle. It's a constant cycle of I'll do this and then I'll do this and I'll do this and then I'll do this. But that's not a balance and
Mhm.
that's not sustainable. And our bodies are made to be balanced and to live in balance.
Mhm.
And so that's why, like, I love that when we talk lifestyle, it's something that can be 365 days out of the year, whether you're on vacation, whether you're away or not, because you have the resources, you have the tools, you're able to go back to the basics. It's nothing new. It is literally coming back, but you have to learn that. And that
Mhm.
has to be almost probably like retrained is what I would say, because we have been in that cycle for so long of I'll do this and then I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this. Or, I know I'm going out with the girls tonight, so I'm going to have coffee for breakfast and I'm going to have a salad for lunch. And then I know I can do whatever I want for dinner. Right? Like that's a typical thing too.
Mhm.
So, but instead of like, hey, wait a minute, like, what if I were able to eat what I want through the day because I know how my body feels and plan it and not feel like I'm missing out because tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and I'm going to feel amazing instead of sluggish and bloated and all the things. So I really like to view it as a lifestyle and something that's sustainable. And
Mhm.
when I go on vacation, I have learned, it has taken time, but I have learned to eat the same way that I do when I'm at home and to make
Mhm.
those choices. But that is a conscious choice. And not everybody in my family does it. And that's okay. That's something I want to do.
Mhm.
And that's a choice that I make for myself because I don't want to have to spend the next 2 weeks when I come home again, resetting myself and feeling bad because I gained 5 pounds while I was away on vacation. Like I've done that for too long, right? Like it
Mhm.
gets to that point where like, well, how can I make this sustainable? How can I enjoy my life all the time and not
Right.
like I'm not living for vacation. Right? Like I want to enjoy, I want to be able to do those things. So I think that's where the word lifestyle comes in. And that's a really big difference. And for people that aren't there yet or don't understand what that word lifestyle means or have to learn it for themselves, it's like it's a process. It's taken me years to understand that. But it's so nice on the other side of it
Right.
to
No,
not have to do it.
absolutely. And I think helping people understand that once they get past the initial challenge of
Mhm.
changing their lifestyle, they will get to the point where eating what they want to eat actually is the better choice. You don't
Yeah.
feel like you're depriving yourself from anything. You know that you actually deserve better,
Yes.
and to feel better from the better choice. And that's where like your attention shifts. It's not,
Yeah.
oh, I don't get to have like whatever
Right.
insert bad food is, right? It's I get to enjoy this healthy abundance of nourishment so that I can
Yes.
feel good and be able to show up in my life like I want to and have the energy that
Oh
I
yeah.
am craving. So
Mhm.
that's the lifestyle ticket, I feel like that's
Yeah.
where you start becoming a believer in the lifestyle that you're talking about, is when you're reaping those benefits of wanting to choose
Yeah.
better because you know you deserve that better.
Yeah. And like that, I mean, that can be a separate conversation too, but that's a true, like, I love myself, right?
Yes.
I love who I am. Therefore, I am going to give her everything that she deserves. I am going to give her the best food that I possibly can. I'm going to move my body the best way that I can. I'm going to fill my mind with everything that I can, which is goes against status quo, that goes against what we're
Mhm.
being told. But on the other side of that, like you said, like it's an amazing feeling. And it is something that we can wake up in the morning and be excited about. Right? Instead of
Absolutely.
like dreading it and going to bed at night and being like, okay, I had too many calories today. What am I going to eat tomorrow? Like, I can't remember the last time I thought that, because it is like I do the same thing day in and day
Mhm.
out, and I've learned those choices. But with anything, it's practice and it's consistency and it's giving yourself grace.
Mhm.
When you maybe fall back into a pattern, or, you went out with your friends one night, whatever it is, you give yourself grace and you're like, okay, it's okay. We're human. And now we get to, like you said, we get to do it again. We get to make
Mhm.
better choices for ourselves today, instead of like, I'm going to go run 5 miles because I'm a
Because
terrible
you ate
person and I did
something.
this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it should
Like,
never be the reason.
no, and then what does that do for our bodies, right? Like, it's, it is all of that. But again, in all of this with health, it is our body. It's our body. How are we loving ourselves? How are we um being confident and using our voice and feeling empowered?
Yeah, I love that so much. Especially that last thing that you just said, feeling empowered, because when you're truly taking care of yourself on all the levels, um, you do feel empowered
We do,
to
yeah.
just show up and live your life and then help other people to do the same thing like you are.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's fun. It's like, I never would have thought that choosing this lifestyle and living a lifestyle would be so much fun, but there is so much joy because I find myself being able to do things that I was never able to do before. 20 years ago,
Mhm.
I was 30, and now I'm like, I feel younger than I did when I was 30, even when I was 40. But it's again because of all those baby steps along the way and being
Mhm.
able to make those choices. So, yeah, it's
I
fun.
love that. Yeah, I love it so much. And I think people also need to remember that it's okay if they're not doing something the same way somebody else is.
100%.
You can find your own wellness and what health means to you
Hmm.
by making different choices than somebody else might, for sure,
Yep.
whether it's what you're eating or how you're moving your body. I know for myself, I am not somebody that has ever calorie counted. I don't weigh
Hmm.
myself. Those are things that do not serve my journey, even
Mm,
though other people might feel like that's something important for them.
right.
So it's just an example of just trying to find a way to feel connected to your own being
Hmm.
and not necessarily follow any kind of written rule book by somebody else.
Well, it just is also too where what's going to work for you, because you're an individual. That's what we all
Mhm.
are, right? We're all individuals with individual needs and wants and desires. So it's going to work for you is not going to work for me.
Mhm.
You also don't have the same experiences that I do, right? So maybe you're not triggered by a certain
Right?
food or something like that. And those are the nuances along the way where when we actually spend time with them, we can understand, instead of saying, oh, well, this diet worked for so and so, so I'm going to do exactly what she's going to do. And then we get mad and frustrated because we don't have the same results as them. We don't have the same
Mhm.
results because we're not her, you know
Right.
and identifying that. And again, that comes down to really just like, wait, I'm individual. I love myself for who I am. This is my body. What do I deserve? What works for me? And then go from there. And you will grow from there too, right? Like in 10 years, who knows? Like something else will change and you'll experience or find something else out about yourself. But that's the really cool thing too, is when you're open to that and allow yourself, then new things will come in and you'll be able to experience those too. So yeah, I think it's really important with that we don't box ourselves in and we don't cookie cutter ourselves to something that somebody else is doing, because we are all unique and we all have different experiences as well.
Yeah, I agree with you completely with that. Christy, tell us, give us a brief understanding of what it looks like when somebody reaches out to you for your help.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. That makes me so happy. Um, but we spend so I like to talk. I don't know if you can tell, but I like to talk and to have a conversation. So typically what we will do is we may have messages back and forth, but we'll talk. I want to talk. I want to find out what your history is. I want to find out what your goals are, and if that is something that I can help you with, because I do not do calorie counting. I do not write you a meal plan to lose 5 pounds in like 2 weeks. So like those are things that I will not do, but what I will do is I'll help you and I'll support you like along the way. So I really want to find out what your goals are, where you came from, and then also too, if you're open to what it is along the way that we will be doing. And one of the questions that I will ask is, how much time do you have to spend on yourself? Because it is a practice. It is something that you are going to have to be consistent with and do every single day. So that's always really important to me, is that you are setting aside time to be able to do what you have to do for yourself.
I love that. I love that you are helping tailor people's experiences with you in a way that is going to be successful for them and sustainable for them. You're not asking somebody that has maybe a half hour or an hour every day to commit 4 hours, 6 hours of their day
Yeah.
to things that are not going to be realistic in their life.
Yeah. And also too, that helps me understand, if you only have a limited time, then that helps me understand what we're going to prioritize, and then how we're going to move through the process. So I do have a kitchen confidence program. I have a signature program that sets the foundation. It really is an 8-week program. And I will use that with my one-on-one clients. I also have a group program that works at that together. So I will be able to piece all of that once I understand where you're coming from in your background, and what your goals are as well.
That's fantastic. I love just the way you're contributing to the wellness of women in particular, but even just the world, because then they're carrying that on into their families and into
Yeah,
the lives of their children and partners. And it's a ripple effect for sure.
it is. Generational patterns are a really, really big thing. And I love to be able to work within families to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you're doing. Kristy, if you were to leave us with some thoughts today, something that you wanted us to think on or remember, what do you think that they would be?
So I think the first thing that I would say is give yourself grace. Any change, any new lifestyle that you are going to be working towards is going to take time, but give yourself grace to understand your body and to also learn things along the way. And one of the things that I love to do is if you were going to do one thing to make a change today, I would say look at your meals that you're eating and just choose one meal and add one vegetable to that meal. That's it. One vegetable, however you want to do it, roasted, sauteed, whatever. Try that for 14 days. Notice how you feel, and then add another meal and add another vegetable to that. And you will be surprised how far that will take you and how different you will feel.
That is amazing sound, very achievable advice.
Yes, and it's simple and it's basic and it's doable.
Yeah,
That's what we want. So just one vegetable. One vegetable. That's it.
I love that. Tell us where we can find you.
It's Clean Eating with Kristy with a K and Clean with a K. And it's all one word together. And I usually in my stories, I will share just some quick kitchen hacks or meal tips, meals that I'm having during the day. But Instagram is where you are. And my website is the same as well, cleaneatingwithkristy.com. So one or the other.
Yeah. And for our listeners, all ways to stay connected with Kristy and to find out how to work with her and to learn about how she can help you will be absolutely linked in the show notes. So definitely check those out. Kristy, I have really loved this conversation today. I find you just really inspiring, and I love what you are putting forth into the world and the way you're helping people just regain their wellness and their power.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation. I love it.